Hey guys, tonight we step into the dusty cobblestone streets of a medieval village, where the clang of blacksmith hammers mixes with the low moo of cattle, and the air carries the scent of fresh-baked bread and sweaty leather. You're surrounded by villagers bustling with excitement, their rough hands clutching bundles of handmade gifts, wooden carvings, woven cloaks, and jars of honey, because tomorrow is Father's Day, and you're determined to make it epic for your old man. The sun dips low, casting a golden glow over the thatched roofs. But you probably won't survive this if you don't get moving. Medieval dads expect perfection, and you're running out of daylight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time below. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from as we drift into this tale. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the muddy path, your boots sinking slightly with each step, the weight of your task pressing on your shoulders. The village square buzzes with activity as you scan for the perfect gifts to honor your dad, a burly knight who spent years guarding the castle. The chatter of merchants and the occasional bark of a dog fill the air, and you spot a young lad hawking a finely carved wooden shield perfect for deflecting his gruff critiques. You barter with a chunk of stale bread, smirking at how medieval haggling feels like a game of wits, your fingers brushing the rough edge of the shield as you inspect it. The mainstream historical fact hits you. Father's Day, as we know it, evolved from medieval traditions of honoring patriarchs, though back then it was less about ties and more about survival skills. You chuckle, softly imagine Dad opening a tie instead of a sword. He'd probably use it to strangle the gift giver with a hearty laugh. The afternoon sun warms your face as you weave through the crowd, dodging a stray chicken that flaps wildly. First joke of the night. Looks like that bird's training for the joust too. You pause by a well, dipping your hands into the cool water, feeling the roughness of your calloused palms, a reminder of the chores Dad's drilled into you since you could walk. A merchant offers a leather belt, etched with his initials, and you nod, picturing his proud grin as he straps it on over his armor. The weight of tradition settles in, but you lighten the mood with a quip. If Dad doesn't like it, you'll just blame the chicken and hope it clucks an apology. Your basket grows heavier as you add a small pouch of dried figs, a treat your dad loves, and you wonder if he'll share or hoard them like a dragon with gold. Next, you stumble upon a quirky tidbit. Some villagers swear by using crushed herbs and boar fat as a scent of strength for dads, rubbing it on their beards like cologne. You resist the urge to gag as you pass a guy slathering it on, the pungent aroma hitting you like a punch, and you decide that's one gift you'll skip. Second joke. That smell could clear a battlefield faster than any sword. The crowd thins as you move toward the edge of the square, where a woman offers a woven cloak dyed a deep green, its fabric soft against your fingers. You add it to your haul, imagining Dad wrapping it around himself on a chilly night watch. Historians still argue whether these gift-giving customs were purely familial or tied to feudal loyalty. Maybe your dad's expecting a tribute more than a present, and you'll have to bow dramatically to appease him. The day wears on, and your legs ache as you lug your treasures home, the clinking of the shield and the rustle of the cloak filling your ears. You pass a group of kids playing with wooden swords, their laughter echoing, and it reminds you of the sparring sessions Dad forced you into tough love with a wooden plank. You smirk, thinking of the third joke. If Dad's gifts don't impress, you'll challenge him to a duel and lose spectacularly for sympathy points. The sky turns a soft orange as you reach your hut, the gifts clinking softly, and you set them down by the hearth, your heart racing with anticipation. The village quiets, the last merchants packing up, and you take a moment to breathe, the cool evening air brushing your skin. Remember that boar fat cologne? Let's hope it doesn't linger when you present your haul tomorrow. You wake to the faint crow of a rooster, its shrill call slicing through the morning mist as you stretch beneath a scratchy wool blanket that smells faintly of wood smoke. The medieval dawn creeps into your small hut, painting the rough wooden walls with a soft golden hue, and the aroma of sizzling meat and freshly baked bread wafts from the hearth where your mom labors over a nightly breakfast for Father's Day. You shuffle across the cold stone floor, your bare feet protesting, and your stomach growls like a hungry wolf as you peer at the spread she's prepared. There's a thick slab of roasted boar, its juices pooling on a chipped wooden platter, crusty bread drizzled with honey that glistens in the firelight, a steaming bowl of stewed apples spiced with cinnamon, and a mug of weak ale that froths slightly as you set it down. The table, a wobbly relic of oak, creaks under the weight of this feast fit for your dada hulking figure still snoring on his bench, his snores rumbling like distant thunder. You dig in, the grease coating your fingers as you tear into the bread, the warm honey melting on your tongue, and you marvel at how this lavish meal mirrors a mainstream historical fact. Medieval feasts were often grand to honor patriarchs, especially on special occasions like this, a custom that echoes through time in spirit, if not in menu. The warmth of the fire wraps around you like a cloak as you savor another bite, the crackle of burning logs blending with the soft clatter of wooden spoons. Then your mum, wiping her hands on her apron, tosses in a quirky tidbit she's mixed crushed nettles into the honey, claiming it boosts a dad's warrior spirit and keeps him alert through the day's trials. You stifle a laugh, picturing Dad charging into battle with a sticky beard, the nettles prickling his chin like tiny spears, and decide to steer clear of that spoonful first joke of the night. That's one way to make him invincible, or at least very confused about his breakfast choices. The flavors dance in your mouth, a rich blend of smoky boar and sweet honey, and you lean back, letting the heat from the hearth soak into your bones. The hut feels alive with the morning's energy, the faint scent of herbs from the nettle mix mingling with the meat, and you glance at Dad, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. You nudge him awake with a gentle prod, grinning as he grunts and sits up, his massive frame shifting the bench with a groan. He grabs the mug of ale, gulping it down like it's water after a long siege, a few drops trailing into his beard as he sets it back with a satisfied smack. The table creaks again as he joins you, his huge hand dwarfing the bread as he tears off a piece, and you slide over the gifts from yesterday, the finely carved wooden shield, and the leather belt etched with his initials. His eyes light up, a rare softness breaking through his gruff exterior as his fingers trace the shield's edges, and you feel a swell of pride. The nettles in honey trick lingers in your mind, and you quip. If that works, maybe you'll try it next time you're dodging chores, imagining the sting as a bizarre motivator to leap out of bed. The meal stretches on, the fire crackling softly, its embers glowing like tiny stars, and you feel the day's promise building as Dad digs into the boar, grease glistening on his knuckles like a warrior's badge. You reach for an apple from the stew, its warm cinnamon scent filling your nose as you pluck it from the bowl, and offer Dad a piece, watching as he chews thoughtfully, his gaze drifting to the gifts. He takes the shield in hand, testing its weight, and drapes the cloak over his shoulders, the deep green fabric pooling around him like a king's robe-second joke. Looks like he's ready to rule the village now, throne included, though you suspect he'd trip over the hem first. The hut grows cozier with him awake, his deep voice rumbling as he mutters about the joust he's been bragging about, and you picture him astride a horse, lance in hand. The gifts sit proudly on the table, the shield reflecting the firelight in soft glints, and you wonder if he'll notice the pouch of dried figs tucked beneath the cloak. Historians still argue whether these feasts were about nourishment or a display of status maybe. Your dad's just milking the occasion for extra portions, and you can't blame him with a spread this hearty. The morning drifts on, the rooster crowing again as if to hurry you along, its call piercing the quiet, and you sip the last of your ale, the bitter taste lingering on your lips. Dad stretches, his armor clanking softly as he stands, the sound echoing off the walls, and you help clear the table, the wooden plates scraping against the surface with a rhythmic scrape. The nettles in honey jar sits untouched on the hearth, a silent testament to your mum's odd wisdom, and you grin, thinking of the third joke. If Dad tries it, he might just grow a second head to match his warrior spirit, though you'd pay to see that transformation. The hut grows quiet as the meal ends, the fire dying down to a bed of glowing embers, and you feel the day's rhythm settling in, ready to follow Dad into whatever adventure awaits. The shield leans against the wall, a silent promise of the training to come, and you settle back, the warmth of the meal lulling you into a gentle sway. You listen as the wind whistles softly outside, rattling the shutters, and Dad adjusts the cloak, its fabric rustling like leaves. The boar bones lie scattered on the platter, picked clean, and you stack the plates, the wood cool under your fingers. The ale mug sits empty, a faint ring of foam marking its base, and you wonder if Dad will demand a refill before the day's festivities begin. The nettle honey glints in its jar, catching the fading firelight, and you shake your head. Maybe it's best left as a curiosity rather than a condiment. The morning light strengthens, streaming through the small window, and you hear the distant clatter of villagers preparing for the day, their voices a low hum. Dad grunts again, pulling you from your thoughts, and you hand him the belt, watching as he cinches it around his waist, the leather creaking with each tug. The cloak sways as he moves, and you imagine him striding out to meet the day, a knight in full regalia, though you know he'll likely trip over a stool before he reaches the door, another silent joke you keep to yourself. The figs remain hidden, a secret treat for later, and you pat the pouch, feeling the dried fruit shift beneath your hand. The fire pops, sending a spark into the air, and you lean closer, the heat brushing your face as you listen to Dad's breathing steady. The meal's remnants fade into memory, the scents blending into the hut's familiar musk, and you feel a quiet anticipation building. Remember that boar fat cologne from yesterday? Let's hope it doesn't pair with this breakfast talk about a warrior stink that could wake the whole village and scare off the jousting horses. The rooster calls once more, a final insistent note, and you stretch again, your muscles loosening from the warmth. Dad rises fully now, his shadow stretching across the room, and you follow, the day's promise pulling you forward. The shield gleams in the corner, a beacon of the tasks ahead, and you smile, ready to see where this Father's Day leads. The nettles in honey jar watches silently, a quirky guardian of the morning, and you turn away, the hut settling into a peaceful hum as the village awakens outside. You step outside into the crisp morning air, the sun just peeking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the muddy yard as you follow your dad toward the training ground. The dew clings to your boots, soaking through the leather with a cold bite, and the distant clang of metal on metal signals the start of another day under his stern yet proud gaze. You trudge behind him, his broad back clad in that green cloak from breakfast, the shield slung over his shoulder bouncing with each purposeful step. The fabric rustles softly, and you grip a wooden practice sword, its weight familiar but heavy in your hands, the grain rough against your palms. Today's Father's Day training feels like a rite of passage, a test of your mettle under his watchful eye, and the village training field opens up before you, a patch of flattened earth ringed by curious onlookers, their murmurs blending with the morning breeze. You feel the weight of their eyes as Dad turns, his face set in that no-nonsense expression you've come to recognize, his beard glinting with a hint of honey from breakfast. He barks an order, his voice cutting through the morning chill like a blade, and you lunge into position, mimicking the stance he's drilled into you since you were knee-high to a sheep. Your legs wobble slightly, the damp ground shifting beneath you, but you hold firm as he advances, his wooden sword raised. The mainstream historical fact surfaces as you swing. Medieval knights often trained their sons in combat from a young age, ensuring the family legacy lived on through skill and sweat. A tradition as old as the castle walls. Your arms ache as you block his mock thrust, the wood clacking loudly, sending a jolt up your arm, and you grin first joke of the night. If this keeps up, you'll be begging the rooster for a break before lunch. The rhythm of your movements syncs with his, the cloak fluttering as he steps aside with surprising agility, and you catch a whiff of that nettles in honey scent from breakfast. Maybe it's working, because he's moving faster than a cart downhill. The crowd murmurs, some kids mimicking your swings with sticks, their laughter a soft counterpoint to the thwack of wood on wood, and you feel a surge of pride, despite the sweat beading on your forehead, trickling down your neck. Then Dad pauses, adjusting your grip with a rough but gentle hand, his calloused fingers guiding yours, and shares a quirky tidbit. He claims the best warriors chew on willow bark before a fight to dull the pain, something he picked up from an old soldier friend who swore by it after a particularly brutal skirmish. You raise an eyebrow, imagining him gnawing like a beaver with a beard full of splinters, and decide to stick to water-second joke. That's a snack strategy for dads, not warriors, though it might explain his stamina. The training intensifies, your breath coming in short bursts as you parry and thrust, the wooden sword leaving red marks on your palms that sting with each swing, the air growing thick with dust kicked up by your feet. Historians still argue whether these training sessions were about bonding or pure discipline. Maybe it's both, as Dad's proud nod after a good block warms you more than the rising sun, his eyes crinkling at the corners. The field dust coats your boots, turning them a dull brown, and you circle each other, the onlookers cheering as you land a rare hit on his shield, the thud echoing like a drumbeat. He chuckles, a deep sound that rumbles through the air, vibrating in your chest, and you relax into the flow, the ache in your muscles fading under his approving gaze. The cloak sways with his movements, the green fabric catching the light, and you think of those figs still hidden in your pouch third joke. Maybe you'll bribe him with them to go easy, though you doubt he'd fall for fruit over a fight. The session stretches on, the sun climbing higher, its warmth seeping into your skin, and you notice the shield's carvings catching the light, a reminder of yesterday's hunt for gifts in the village square. You pause to catch your breath, the wooden sword drooping in your hand, and Dad steps back, wiping his brow with the cloak's edge. The crowd thins as some wander off, but a few linger, their whispers carrying on the wind, and you feel a quiet pride in holding your own. The nettles in honey scent lingers faintly, a quirky echo of the morning feast, and you wonder if it's giving him an edge or just making him smell like a herbal remedy. The training ground grows quieter, the clatter of practice fading, and you stand side by side, the shield propped against his leg, its weight a silent testament to your efforts. Remember that boar fat cologne from the gift hunt? It's a good thing it didn't follow you here, or you'd be fighting off flies instead of Dad, a thought that makes you smirk as the sun climbs toward noon. You follow your dad away from the training ground, the midday sun beating down with a relentless warmth that seeps into your aching muscles as you trudge toward the village forge. The air grows thick with the tang of hot metal and charcoal, a sharp contrast to the dusty training field, and your boots kick up small clouds of dirt with each step. The wooden sword dangles from your hand, its weight a lingering reminder of the morning's sparring, but the promise of a special gift pulls you forward, igniting a spark of excitement beneath your exhaustion. The forge looms ahead, a squat building with smoke curling lazily from its chimney, its stone walls blackened by years of fire and labor. The rhythmic clang of a hammer on anvil grows louder, a steady heartbeat that draws you closer, and you walk beside Dad, his green cloak swaying with each stride, the shield tucked under his arm, and the new sword scabbard brushing against his leg. You feel a mix of anticipation and fatigue as the blacksmith greets you with a nod, his face streaked with soot, his apron singed at the edges, marking him as a master of his craft. The blacksmith, a burly man with arms like tree trunks and hands scarred from molten metal, motions you closer with a grunt, and you stand by the glowing forge, the heat washing over you like a wave, drying the sweat on your brow almost instantly. He pulls a length of steel from the fire with tongs, its orange glow reflecting in your eyes like a miniature sun, and begins to shape it with precise, powerful strikes. The hammer arcs through the air, each blow sending sparks flying like tiny fireflies, and you wince as one leaps toward you, brushing your sleeve with a faint sizzle before fading. The mainstream historical fact hits you. Medieval blacksmiths were the backbone of knightly life, crafting weapons that defined a family's status and carried their name into legend. And this sword will be a testament to your dad's prowess. You grin first joke of the night. If this sword's for Dad, I hope it doesn't come with a matching burn mark to prove my bravery. The clang of metal fills the air, a steady beat that syncs with your heartbeat, and you watch as the blade takes form, its edges sharpening under the blacksmith's skilled hands, the steel bending to his will. Dad leans in, his eyes gleaming with pride, the cloak's hem brushing the dusty floor, and he shares a quirky tidbit. He once saw a blacksmith weave a lock of hair into a sword hilt for luck or tradition. Some swore by for protection in battle, a personal talisman against the chaos of war. You raise an eyebrow, picturing a strand of his bushy beard tangled in the steel, glinting amidst the leather wrap, and chuckle second joke. That's one way to keep Dad close, even if the sword gets lost in some muddy battlefield. The forge's heat intensifies, the air shimmering around the fire, and you shift, the shield's weight pressing into your side as the blacksmith quenches the blade in a barrel of water. The hiss of steam rises like a dragon's breath, filling the small space with a sharp, metallic scent, and you step back, the sudden coolness a relief against your skin. Historians still argue whether these custom weapons were practical tools of war, Or symbolic tokens of status? Maybe it's both. As Dad's grin suggests, this sword means more to him than just a tool, a piece of his soul forged in fire. The process drags on, the blacksmith grinding the edge with a whetstone, sparks flying like tiny fireworks that dance in the dim light, and you feel the day's heat seeping into your bones, making your limbs heavy. The sword emerges from the grind, its surface smooth and deadly, the hilt wrapped in dark leather that creaks as the blacksmith tests its grip. Dad takes it, his massive hand enveloping the handle, and he swings it gently, testing its balance with a satisfied nod, the blade whistling through the air. The cloak sways as he moves, the green fabric catching the light filtering through the forge's open door. And you think of those figs still hidden in your pouch third joke. Maybe I'll trade them for a turn at swinging that beauty, though you doubt he'd let you near it without a fight. The forge quiets as the work finishes, the blacksmith wiping his hands on his apron, leaving streaks of soot, and you stand beside Dad, the new sword gleaming in the sunlight that spills across the threshold, its edge catching the rays like a beacon. You watch as he adjusts the scabbard, the leather creaking, and the shield shifts under his arm, its carved surface worn but sturdy. The blacksmith offers a rag to clean the blade, and Dad runs it along the steel, his movements careful, almost reverent. The air cools slightly as the fire dies down, the last embers glowing faintly, and you feel a quiet pride watching him handle his new prize. The nettles in honey scent from breakfast lingers faintly on him, a quirky echo of the morning's feast, and you wonder if it's giving him an extra layer of confidence, just making him smell like a walking herb garden. The forge's interior grows dimmer, the hammer silent now, and you step outside, the midday sun blinding after the fire's glow. Dad slings the sword at his hip, the scabbard tapping against his leg, and you follow the shield's weight, a comforting presence as you head back toward the village. The path crunches underfoot, the sound mixing with the distant hum of the jousting field, and you glance at the sword, its hilt peeking from the scabbard, a symbol of the day's labor. The blacksmith's shop fades behind you, its smoke trail thinning in the sky, and you feel the day's rhythm shifting, the excitement of the gift-making giving way to the next chapter. Dad walks with a straighter posture, the cloak billowing slightly, and you smirk, imagining him strutting like a king with his new blade. The figs rustle in your pouch, a secret you'll unveil later, and you wonder if he'll notice the effort behind the gift hunt. The village comes into view, its thatched roofs glowing under the sun, and you feel the weight of the morning's training easing, replaced by the pride of this moment. Remember that boar-fat cologne from the gift hunt? It's a good thing it didn't follow you here, or you'd be fighting off flies instead of admiring Dad's new sword, a thought that brings a quiet laugh as you walk on. You follow the swelling crowd toward the jousting field, the afternoon sun blazing overhead with a heat that presses down like a heavy cloak, pulling you along with your dad at your side. The ground vibrates with the rhythmic thud of hooves, a deep pulse that you feel through the soles of your boots, and the scent of trampled grass and polished armor fills your lungs, sharp and metallic. You weave through the throng, his green cloak flapping in the warm breeze, the shield slung over his back, and the new sword hanging at his hip, its scabbard tapping against his leg, with each step a glinting promise of the spectacle to come. You cheer Dad in a thrilling Father's Day joust, your voice joining the roar of the villagers, a wave of sound that rises and falls like the tide. And you feel the thrill of watching him prove his metal ripple through you. The field stretches before you, a long stretch of packed dirt marked by colorful banners fluttering in the wind, Their reds and blues are stark contrast to the earthy tones around them, and the tension builds as the first riders take their positions, their lances gleaming under the sun. The stands creak as you settle into a spot, the wooden bench warm against your thighs, and the mainstream historical fact emerges as the trumpets blare their brassy call. Jousting was a medieval test of skill and bravery, often held to honor knights like your dad on special days, a tradition born from the clash of war and celebration. You lean forward, the bench groaning under your weight, and grin first joke of the night, if Dad falls off that horse, I'll blame the nettles, in honey, for making him too sticky to stay seated. The memory of breakfast's odd concoction bringing a smirk. The riders charge, their horses kicking up clouds of dust that drift toward you, lances splintering with a crack that echoes across the field like thunder, and Dad mounts his steed, his armor gleaming as he adjusts his helm, the metal glinting with each movement. The crowd gasps as he steadies his lance, his posture rigid yet fluid, and you catch the faint jingle of his gear, a sound that sets your heart racing. A nearby spectator, a grizzled man with a patchy beard, leans in and shares a quirky tidbit. Some knights wore lucky charms, like a feather from a favored bird, tucked into their armor or helm for good fortune in the lists. You chuckle, picturing Dad with a peacock feather sticking out of his helm, swaying with each gallop second joke. Dad's lucky charm might be that fig pouch I'm hiding, though I doubt it'll stop a lance. The joust unfolds, dust rising with each pass, the horse's hooves pounding the earth, and you shield your eyes as the sun catches the flying splinters, the air thick with tension. Historians still argue whether these events were sport or a form of war training. Maybe it's both, as Dad's focused glare suggests he's treating this like a battlefield, his lance held with the precision of a seasoned warrior. The first tilt ends with a splintered lance, the crowd roaring as the loser tumbles into the dirt, and Dad remains upright, his horse prancing with pride. You clap, the sound lost in the din, and feel a surge of excitement as he prepares for the next pass, the sword at his hip swaying with the horse's gait. The shield on his back catches the light, its carvings a silent testament to yesterday's forge work, and you think of those Fig's third joke. If he wins, I'll claim I trained him with that wooden sword from this morning, though we both know he'd laugh me off the field. The next rider charges a younger knight with a flashy red plume, and the lances meet with a resounding crack, Dad's lance holding firm as the other shatters. The crowd erupts, your voice joining the cheer, and you stand, the bench creaking beneath you, the dust settling around your feet. The joust continues, each pass a dance of skill and luck, and Dad's horse snorts, its breath visible in the afternoon heat. You notice the cloak billowing behind him, the green fabric a stark contrast to the grey armor, and the sword's hilt peeks from the scabbard, a reminder of the forger's labor. The spectators lean forward, their breaths held, and you feel the day's energy peaking, the sun dipping lower, casting long shadows across the field. The next tilt sees Dad score a solid hit, the opponent's shield splintering, and the crowd's roar lifts you off your seat, your hands clapping until they sting. The quirky feather charm idea lingers, and you wonder if Dad's got some secret token, maybe that nettle honey scent is his luck after all, a thought that makes you smirk. The field grows quieter as the final rounds approach, the dust settling into a thin haze, and you watch Dad adjust his grip, his helm tilting slightly as he nods to the marshal. The horse paws the ground, eager, and you feel a quiet pride, the morning's training echoing in his movements. The lance lowers, the crowd holds its breath, and the charge begins. Hooves thundering, the clash imminent. The lances meet, a sharp crack splitting the air, and Dad's opponent wavers, nearly toppling, but holds on. The crowd groans, then cheers, and you join in, your voice hoarse from shouting, the bench warm against your legs. The joust ends with Dad victorious, his horse trotting a victory lap, and you rush forward, the shield's weight forgotten as you hug him, the armor cold against your cheek. The sun sinks lower, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, and the crowd disperses, their voices fading into the evening. Dad dismounts, the cloak settling around him, and the sword clinks as he sheathes it, his face flushed with triumph. You hand him the shield, its carvings dulled by dust, and he slings it over his shoulder, the weight familiar now. The figs rustle in your pouch, a secret treat for later, and you wonder if he'll share the glory with a bite. The jousting field empties, the banners flapping in the breeze, and you walk beside him, the day's thrill still buzzing in your veins. Remember that boar fat cologne from the gift hunt? It's a good thing it didn't follow you here, or you'd be fending off flies instead of celebrating Dad's win. A thought that brings a quiet laugh as you head toward the castle. You follow the crowd into the castle hall, the evening air cooling as it brushes against your skin, carrying the rich scent of roasted meat and spiced wine that draws you forward like a siren's call. The stone walls rise around you, their rough surfaces echoing with laughter and the clinking of goblets, a symphony of celebration that fills the vast space with warmth. You stand beside Dad, his green cloak pristine after the day's triumphs, the shield slung over his back, and the new sword hanging at his hip, its scabbard gleaming faintly in the torchlight, a regal air that sets him apart amid the throng. You join a grand banquet celebrating his legacy, the long tables groaning under platters of venison, golden-crusted bread, and bowls of stewed fruit, their aromas mingling with the smoky tang of the hearth. The warmth of the hall wraps around you, seeping into your bones, and you settle onto a bench, the wood creaking under your weight as you take in the feast laid out before you, a tribute to his skill on the jousting field. The hall buzzes with energy, servants weaving through the crowd with pitchers of ale, their footsteps a soft patter against the stone, and the mainstream historical fact surfaces as you reach for a slice of venison. Medieval banquets were often held to honor knights' deeds, a tradition that turned victories into legends, and tonight, Dad's jousting prowess takes center stage. You tear into the meat, the juices running down your fingers, and grin first joke of the night. If he eats all this venison, the joust horse might need a break to carry him home, the image of a groaning steed bringing a quiet chuckle. The fire in the massive hearth crackles, casting dancing shadows across the walls, and you notice Dad accepting a goblet from a servant, his hand dwarfing the cup as he raises it in a toast, the cloak swaying with emotion. The crowd cheers, their voices a roar that reverberates, and you feel a swell of pride, the day's efforts culminating in this moment of glory. A bard strums a lute near the high table, his fingers plucking a merry tune, and he leans over to share a quirky tidbit with you. Some lords in the past added gold leaf to their food for flair, a decadent touch to impress their guests. You stifle a laugh, picturing Dad with a mouthful of glittering venison, and quip-second joke. He might choke on that instead of the meat, though he'd probably call it a noble sacrifice. The feast continues, the tables laden with trenchers of bread soaked in gravy, and you dip yours in, the warm broth coating your tongue with a savory richness. The hall grows warmer, the air thick with the scent of spices and roasting herbs, and you watch as Dad tears into a loaf, his beard catching crumbs that glint like tiny treasures. Historians still argue whether these feasts boosted morale among the knights and villagers or served as a flaunt of wealth and power. Maybe it's both, as the opulence around you suggests a blend of celebration and status. The torchlight flickers, casting golden pools across the stone floor, and you reach for a handful of stewed apples, their cinnamon scent wafting up as you pop one into your mouth. The sweetness, a contrast to the savory meat. Dad leans back, his shield propped against the bench, and the sword's hilt peeks from the scabbard, a silent reminder of the forge's labor. You think of those figs hidden in your pouch third joke. If he naps through this feast, I'll blame the wine and sneak a fig while he snores, the thought bringing a mischievous grin. The crowd's chatter rises and falls, a rhythmic hum, and a servant offers you a goblet, the ale frothing slightly as you take a sip, its bitter edge cutting through the meal's richness. The hall feels alive, the clatter of plates and the occasional laugh blending into a cozy din, and you feel the day's exhaustion settling into your limbs, softened by the feast's warmth. You glance at Dad, his face flushed from the wine, and he raises his goblet again, the crowd echoing his toast with a hearty cheer that shakes the rafters. The cloak drapes over his shoulders, the green fabric catching the firelight, and the shield's carvings gleam faintly, a testament to yesterday's gift hunt. The bard shifts to a slower tune, his lute strings humming softly, and you lean back, the bench creaking under you, letting the music wash over you. The venison platter empties, replaced by a tray of cheeses and nuts, and you grab a handful, the saltiness, a pleasant surprise. The hall's warmth lulls you, the torchlight steady now, and you notice a few villagers nodding off, their heads resting on their armsicite that makes you smirk, wondering if Dad will join them. The feast stretches on, the servants clearing plates with practiced ease, and you watch as Dad accepts another slice of bread, tearing it with his teeth, the crumbs scattering like confetti. The sword at his hip shifts as he moves, the scabbard tapping the bench, and you feel a quiet pride, the day's jousting victory replaying in your mind. The gold leaf tidbit lingers, and you imagine Dad demanding such a treat, his beard sparkling another silent joke you keep to yourself. The hall grows quieter, the crowd thinning as the night deepens, and you sip your ale, the mug cool against your palm. The figs rustle in your pouch, a secret treat you'll unveil later, and you wonder if he'll share the feast's bounty with a bite. The hearth's fire dies down, the embers glowing like tiny stars, and you feel the day's rhythm slowing, the banquet a fitting tribute to his legacy. The stone walls absorb the fading noise, the last goblets clinking softly, and you stretch, your muscles loosening from the bench's support. Dad leans forward, the cloak pooling around him, and mutters something about the hunt tomorrow, his voice a low rumble. The shield leans against the table, its weight a grounding presence, and you trace its carvings with your finger, the wood smooth under your touch. The bard's tune fades, replaced by the crackle of the fire, and you feel a gentle contentment, the feast's richness settling into your stomach. The wine pitcher passes by, its contents dwindling, and you decline, preferring the ale's bite. The hall's warmth lingers, the torchlight dimming as servants snuff them out, and you watch Dad rise, the sword clinking as he adjusts it, ready to lead you home. The crowd disperses, their footsteps echoing into the night, and you follow Dad toward the door, the cloak swaying behind him like a royal train. The figs remain hidden, a quiet promise for later, and you smirk, imagining his reaction. The banquet's remnants fade into memory, the scents blending into the castle's musk, and you feel the day's pride swelling. Remember that boar fat cologne from the gift hunt? It's a good thing it didn't follow you here, or the hall would smell more like a stable than a feast. A thought that brings a soft laugh as you step into the cooling evening air. You settle by the hearth in the hut, the fire crackling softly as the night deepens, its warm glow casting flickering shadows across the rough wooden walls. The air carries the faint scent of burning wood mingled with the lingering tang of the feast's spices, a cozy blend that wraps around you like a blanket. Dad's voice draws you in, low and resonant, as he pulls a stool closer, the new sword resting against the wall beside the shield, its hilt catching the firelight with a subtle gleam. You listen to his heroic tales by the fire, the embers popping occasionally, and the hut feels alive with the weight of his words, each story painting pictures of battles and bravery that stretch back through the years. His cloak drapes over the bench, the green fabric rumpled from the day, and you sink into the moment, the day's exhaustion easing as his voice fills the space. He begins with a tale of a skirmish at the edge of the forest, his hands gesturing broadly, the calluses on his palms catching the light as he describes the clash of steel and the shouts of men. The mainstream historical fact surfaces as you lean closer. Oral histories were the lifeblood of medieval knightly deeds, preserving their exploits through generations when parchment was scarce and ink even scarcer. You shift on the floor, the cool stone grounding you, and grin first joke of the night. If he embellishes this tale with a dragon, I'll demand a front row seat to the next one. The thought of a fire-breathing beast bringing a quiet chuckle. The fire's warmth seeps into your skin, and you notice the shield's carvings flickering in the corner, a silent echo of yesterday's gift hunt, while the sword's presence adds a touch of grandeur to the humble hut. Dad's voice dips as he recounts a narrow escape, his eyes glinting with the memory, and he shares a quirky tidbit. Some knights claimed visions guided them in battle, divine whispers that turned the tide when all seemed lost. You raise an eyebrow, picturing him pausing mid-swing to consult the heavens, and laugh second joke, Dad's vision might be the ale talking, though I'd pay to see him argue with an angel. The tale unfolds, the fire's crackle punctuating his words, and you feel the room shrink to just the two of you, the outside world fading into the night. Historians still argue whether these stories held truth or were spun for morale. Maybe it's both. As his proud smile suggests a blend of fact and flair, his voice steady as he describes a fallen comrade's bravery. The hut grows quieter, the embers glowing like tiny stars, and you pull your knees up, the warmth radiating from the hearth soothing your tired muscles. He shifts to a story of a siege, his hands mimicking the arc of a catapult, and you imagine the stones flying, the dust rising, the chaos he paints so vividly. The cloak lies forgotten, its green folds blending with the shadows, and you think of those figs tucked away third joke. If he nods off mid-story, I'll wake him with a fig to the nose, the image of his startled face bringing a smirk. The fire pops again, sending a spark into the air that fades before it reaches you, and you feel the day's jousting and feast melting into this intimate moment, the sword's gleam a quiet sentinel in the corner. You listen as he describes a midnight raid, his voice dropping to a whisper, the hut's silence amplifying each word. The shield leans against the wall, its weight a grounding presence, and you trace its edges with your eyes, the carvings worn but proud. The tale shifts to a moment of honor, a banner raised under fire, and you feel a swell of pride, the legacy of his deeds settling into your chest. The quirky vision idea lingers, and you wonder if he's ever seen a ghostly guide. Maybe that nettle honey scent from breakfast was his celestial cue, a thought that makes you stifle another laugh. The fire dies down, the embers pulsing faintly, and you shift closer, the stone floor cool against your legs, drawn into the rhythm of his storytelling. The night deepens, the hut's shadows lengthening, and Dad's voice grows softer, the tale turning to a quiet victory, a moment of peace after the storm. You hear the distant hoot of an owl outside, its call blending with the fire's last crackles, and the sword's hilt reflects the fading light, a reminder of the forge's labor. The figs rustle in your pouch, a secret treat you'll save, and you imagine offering one to him, a small tribute to his tales. The hall's feast lingers in your memory, the clatter of goblets echoing faintly, and you feel the day's rhythm slowing, the stories weaving a tapestry of his life. The shield's presence steadies you, its carvings a silent link to the day's gifts, and you lean back, the warmth lulling you into a gentle sway. The fire's glow fades to a soft amber, the embers sinking lower, and Dad's voice trails off, his eyes distant as if lost in the past. You watch the smoke curl toward the thatched roof, its tendrils vanishing into the darkness, and feel a quiet contentment, the tales binding you to him. The quirky visions might be fanciful, but the pride in his voice is real, and you smile, the hut's silence a comfortable blanket. The sword stands guard, its blade unseen but felt, and you stretch, your muscles loosening from the day's exertions. The figs remain hidden, a promise for tomorrow, and you wonder if he'll spin another tale over breakfast. The night settles, the owl's call fading, and you drift, the fire's last light a gentle guide. The hut grows still, the embers casting a faint glow, and you hear Dad's breathing steady, a low hum that matches the night's rhythm. The shield's weight seems to anchor the room, its carvings a story in themselves, and you feel the day's pride swelling, the joust and feast echoing in your mind. The nettle honey scent lingers faintly, a quirky thread from the morning, and you smirk, imagining it as his storytelling fuel. The sword's hilt gleams one last time, and you close your eyes, the tales replaying like a lullaby, the hut's warmth cradling you as the night deepens. Remember that boar-fat cologne from the gift hunt? It's a good thing it didn't follow you here, or the stories might have smelled more like a barn than a battlefield, a thought that brings a final, sleepy laugh. You venture into the forest with Dad, the morning mist clinging to the trees like a ghostly veil, its cool dampness brushing your face as your boots crunch on a carpet of fallen leaves. The air carries the earthy scent of moss and the distant, haunting call of a deer, a sound that stirs your blood with the thrill of the chase. You carry the shield, its weight a familiar burden against your shoulder, while the new sword hangs at his hip, its scabbard glinting faintly through the fog as you track game together in this medieval forest adventure. The trees tower overhead, their branches forming a canopy that filters the weak sunlight, and the ground beneath you is soft, muffling your steps as you move deeper into the wild. The mainstream historical fact emerges as you scan for tracks. Medieval hunts were a test of a knight's skill, a ritual that honed their instincts and proved their worth to the village, a tradition Dad takes seriously with every measured stride. You follow him, his green cloak blending with the foliage, the shield's carvings catching the occasional ray of light, and you grip a short spear he handed you, its rough wood pressing into your palm. The forest hums with lifebirds chirping, a rustle in the underbrush, and you grin first joke of the night. If we catch nothing, I'll blame the rooster for waking the deer instead of us. The memory of its shrill call bringing a smirk. Dad pauses, crouching low, his finger tracing a hoof print in the mud, and shares a quirky tidbit. Some hunters use trained falcons to flush out game, their sharp eyes spotting prey from the sky. You chuckle second joke. Dad's falcon might be that fig pouch I'm hiding, though I doubt it'll swoop down on a stag. The mist swirls around you, the air cool against your neck, and you feel the day's rhythm shift. The hunt, a new chapter after the feast entails. The forest grows denser, the trees closing in, and you move silently, the shield bumping against your side as you navigate a tangle of roots. Historians still argue whether these hunts were about sustenance or a display of prowess. Maybe it's both, as Dad's focused gaze suggests he's tracking with the intensity of a warrior. You spot a flash of brown through the trees, a deer pausing to graze, and Dad signals you to circle around, his movements fluid despite the sword's weight. The spear feels unsteady in your hands, but you creep forward, the shield's edge scraping a branch with a faint whisper. The deer lifts its head, ears twitching, and you hold your breath, the forest falling silent around you. Dad edges closer, the cloak barely rustling, and you mimic him, the shield, a silent partner in this stealthy dance. The deer bolts, its hooves thudding against the earth, and you charge after it, the spear raised, the shield bouncing against your arm. He laughs, a deep sound that echoes through the tree's third joke. If Dad trips over a root, I'll say it's a strategic retreat, the thought lightening the chase. The forest blurs past, branches snagging your clothes, and the deer vanishes into the mist, leaving you panting, the shield heavy on your shoulder. The sword at his hip sways as he stops, catching his breath, and you stand beside him, the hunt's thrill still buzzing in your veins. The mist thins as the sun climbs, casting dappled light on the forest floor, and you lower the spear, the wood slick with sweat. The shield's weight steadies you, its carvings a reminder of the day's gifts, and you feel a quiet pride in the effort. Remember that nettle honey from the feast? Let's hope it didn't sweeten the deer's trail, a thought that brings a tired smile as you head back, the forest quieting around you. You kneel in the village chapel, the morning light filtering through stained glass windows, casting a mosaic of soft reds and blues across the stone floor as the air fills with the faint scent of incense and aged stone. The coolness of the ground seeps through your knees, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the hunt still lingering in your muscles, and you hold the shield upright, its weight a steady presence against your chest. The new sword rests beside Dad, its scabbard glinting faintly in the dim light, and you watch as a priest prepares to bless him for Father's Day, his robes rustling softly with each deliberate step. The chapel's silence wraps around you, broken only by the priest's low chant, a rhythmic hum that honors Dad's legacy, and you feel a solemn pride swelling within, the day's adventures culminating in this sacred moment. The priest, a wiry figure with a weathered face, moves forward, his hands raised as he sprinkles holy water from a silver bowl, the droplets catching the light like tiny stars. The mainstream historical fact surfaces as the water touches Dad's cloak. Medieval blessings reinforced a knight's duty, sanctifying their role as protectors and leaders, a ritual as old as the castle's foundations. You shift slightly, the shield's edge pressing into your arm, and grin first joke of the night. If the priest nods off mid-blessing, I'll blame the incense for lulling him to sleep, the thought of his snores echoing in the chapel bringing a quiet chuckle. The chant continues, the words blending into a soothing cadence, and Dad stands tall, the sword at his hip a symbol of his prowess, the green cloak draping regally over his shoulders. The priest pauses, dipping his fingers into the bowl again, and shares a quirky tidbit, some used holy water drawn from distant springs, believed to carry extra divine power from its journey. You raise an eyebrow, picturing Dad demanding a sip to test its strength, and laugh second joke, he might splash it on that honeybeard from breakfast, turning it into a holy mess. The chapel's air grows warmer, the incense curling upward, and you feel the day's rhythm slowing, the hunt's energy giving way to this quiet reverence. Historians still argue whether these rituals held spiritual weight or were political tools. Maybe it's both, as Dad's solemn nod suggests a blend of faith and duty, his face softened by the priest's words. The shield leans against you, its carvings faintly visible in the stained glass glow, and you adjust your grip, the wood smooth under your fingers. The priest steps closer, laying a hand on Dad's shoulder, the blessing intensifying as he murmurs a prayer, the sound echoing off the stone walls. You glance at the sword, its hilt peeking from the scabbard, a reminder of the forge's labor, and think of those figs hidden in your pouch third joke. If Dad blesses me back, I'll need it after that hunt. The image of him sprinkling fig juice bringing a smirk. The chapel falls quieter, the chant fading into a soft hum, and you feel a sense of peace, the day's triumphs woven into this sacred act. The priest steps back, his robes settling, and Dad rises, the cloak swaying as he turns to you, a rare smile breaking through his stern facade. The shield's weight steadies you, its presence a link to the day's gifts, and you stand, the cool stone giving way to the warmth of the moment. The incense lingers, a sweet undertone to the stone's musk, and you wonder if the holy water carries a trace of that nettle-honey scent, a quirky thread from the morning. The chapel's silence deepens, the stained glass darkening as the sun shifts, and you follow Dad toward the door, the sword clinking softly at his side. The village comes into view as you step outside, the thatched roofs glowing under the morning light, and you feel the blessing's calm settling into your bones. The figs rustle in your pouch, a secret treat for later, and you imagine sharing one with him, a small tribute to the day. Remember that boar fat cologne from the gift hunt? It's a good thing it didn't follow you here, or the chapel might have smelled more like a stable than a sanctuary, a thought that brings a tired laugh as you walk on. You sit by the hearth in the hut once more, the night deep and quiet, the fire's embers glowing softly like distant stars as the last traces of the day fade into memory. The air carries the faint scent of smoke blending with the lingering richness of the feast, a comforting warmth that wraps around you like a familiar cloak. Dad settles beside you, his green cloak rumpled from the day's adventures, the new sword leaning against the wall beside the shield, its hilt catching the dying light with a subtle gleam. You reflect on a memorable Father's Day with him, the crackle of the embers punctuating the silence, and the hut feels like a sanctuary, the outside world hushed under the night's embrace. His presence fills the space, his breathing a steady rhythm, and you let the day's events replay in your Mindeach spa, each clang of the forge, each cheer from the joust weaving a tapestry of pride and connection. The mainstream historical fact lingers as you stare into the embers. Medieval families cherish days like this, honoring patriarchs with rituals and feats, a tradition that echoes in the quiet pride you feel now. You shift on the floor, the cool stone a gentle contrast to the fire's warmth, and smile first joke of the night. If Dad snores now, I'll call it a lullaby to end the day. The thought of his rumbling snores bringing a soft chuckle. The shield's carvings flicker in the corner, a reminder of the gift hunt. And the sword stands as a sentinel, its blade unseen but felt, a testament to the forge's labor. The day's blessings and tales settle into your chest, and you feel a warm contentment, the hunt's thrill and the feast's richness fading into this peaceful moment. Dad leans back, his cloak pooling around him, and shares a quirky tidbit. Some ended their days with stargazing, seeking omens in the night sky to guide their fortunes. You glance at the small window, the stars peeking through, and laugh second joke, Dad's stars might be ale, induced after that banquet, though I'd follow his cosmic wisdom anyway. The embers pulse faintly, their glow casting shadows that dance across the walls, and you feel the day's rhythm slowing, the adventures blending into a gentle hum. Historians still argue over the depth of these traditions, whether they were heartfelt or ceremonial, maybe it's both, as Dad's quiet smile suggests a mix of duty and love, his hand resting near the sword's hilt. You think of those figs tucked away in your pouch, a secret treat for tomorrow third joke. If I sleep through this reflection, I'll dream of jousts with fig-flavored lances, the image of sticky combat bringing a tired grin. The fire dies down further, the last sparks fading into ash, and you lean closer, the warmth brushing your face as the hut grows still. The shield's weight seems to anchor the room, its carvings a silent story, and you trace them with your eyes, the wood worn but proud. The sword's presence steadies you, its gleam a quiet echo of the day, and you feel the nettle honey scent from breakfast lingering faintly, a quirky thread that ties the morning to this night. The night deepens, the hut's shadows lengthening, and you hear the distant hoot of an owl, its call blending with the ember's soft crackle. Dad's breathing grows heavier, a low hum that matches the night's rhythm, and you feel a swell of pride, the joust's victory and the chapel's blessing replaying in your mind. The figs rustle slightly as you shift, a promise for the morning, and you imagine sharing one with him, a small tribute to the day's bond. The stars shine brighter through the window, their light a gentle guide, and you lean back, the warmth lulling you into a gentle sway. The hunt's energy, the feast's clamor, and the tale's magic fade into this quiet reflection, the hut a cocoon of memory. The embers cast a faint amber glow, the ash settling, and you close your eyes, the day's pride swelling in your chest. The shield and sword stand as silent guardians, their presence a link to the day's gifts, and you feel reassured, safe in this moment with Dad. The nettle honey scent lingers, a quirky reminder of the morning, and you smirk, imagining it as his secret strength. The stars wink out as clouds drift over, and you drift, the hut's silence a comforting blanket. Remember that boar fat cologne from the gift hunt? It's a good thing it didn't follow you here, or the night might smell more like a barn than a haven, a thought that brings a final, sleepy laugh. As the night deepens, the hut grows still, the embers fading to a soft glow, casting a gentle light across the room that softens the edges of the shield and sword. Your breathing slows, matching the quiet rhythm of the world outside, where the wind whispers through the trees like a lullaby. Dad's presence beside you feels like a steady anchor, his snores a comforting hum, and you let the day's memories wash over you, each spar, each clang of the forge, each cheer from the joust blending into a warm haze. The figs remain a secret treasure, a sweet promise for tomorrow, and the nettle honey jar sits forgotten, its odd magic no longer needed. The stars peek through the clouds again, their light a gentle guide, and you feel reassured, safe in the glow of this day. The fire's last spark fades into darkness, and you slip into a calm, peaceful sleep, the world dissolving into a whisper of dreams.